Sunday mornings have always been my favorite, the kind where the world feels quiet, like it's giving you permission to breathe again. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen, sunlight danced across the counter, and for a second, everything felt simple. I scrolled through my feed without thinking, half awake, half smiling. Then I saw his name, Ethan, tagged in a few photos from last night's bachelor party. My husband, looking carefree, holding a beer, laughing with his friends. I smiled at first. It was nice to see him unwind. He'd been stressed for weeks, but then something tugged at me, like a thread I shouldn't pull. In one photo, behind the group, I caught a glimpse of him. Not just him, a woman. Sitting on his lap, her arm draped over his shoulder, whispering something in his ear. My breath hitched. My eyes refused to believe what they were seeing, but my gut already knew. I zoomed in, hoping to prove myself wrong. The lighting was dim, the crowd busy. But there it was, his hand, resting on her waist, his wedding ring glinting like a cruel little spotlight. My heart dropped. No, that can't be him, I whispered, even as my fingers saved the photo. The coffee turned cold in my hands, and something inside me went even colder. I sat there, staring at the screen like it was mocking me. My thumb hovered over the next photo, but part of me didn't want to know more. Curiosity and pain wrestled inside me, one begging to look closer, the other screaming to stop. I swiped anyway. There he was again. This time, dancing with her, his hands low on her waist, his face turned toward hers with that same grin he used to give me when we first met. My stomach twisted. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I could hear my pulse in my ears, loud and steady, like a warning drum. The air suddenly felt heavier, almost too thick to breathe. I looked down at my wedding ring and wondered how something so small could start feeling like a chain. I pressed my lips together, forcing my hands to stay still as I saved every single photo. Evidence, proof, betrayal, frozen in pixels. I didn't cry. Not yet. There was no room for tears, not when my mind was already moving faster than my heart. He thought he'd get away with it. That much was clear. But he didn't realize something. I see details for a living. I notice patterns, reflections, backgrounds. That's what I do as a designer. And now, those same instincts were about to help me expose the one person I never thought I'd have to study. A few minutes later, I heard his footsteps coming down the hallway. Slow, heavy, unbothered. He yawned as he walked into the kitchen, rubbing his eyes like a man who'd slept through innocence itself. I looked up, smiled faintly, and slid my phone face down on the table. "Fun night?" I asked, my tone light, like we were just making small talk. He stretched, grabbed a mug, and said, "Yeah, nothing crazy. Just drinks, pool, you know." I tilted my head, pretending to think. "Right, pool tables, not pool parties." He frowned, confused. "What?" I smiled again. "Never mind. Eat your breakfast. You'll need your strength." I don't think he caught the way my hand tightened around my cup, or how long I held his gaze. He was too busy buttering his toast, too sure of the mask he thought I couldn't see through. It almost amused me. Almost. When he left for work, I sat back down, staring at my reflection in the black screen of my phone. My heartbeat had slowed, replaced by something sharper. Focus. I wasn't going to scream or throw things. That would give him power. No, I'd take a different route. I'd find out everything, every detail, every lie. And when I did, he wouldn't see it coming. I didn't confront him right away. Anger is loud, but silence is strategy. I spent the rest of the day pretending everything was normal. I folded laundry, answered emails, even smiled when he texted me a heart emoji. Every move felt rehearsed, like I was performing in a play I didn't audition for. But behind that calm smile, my mind was dissecting every word, every timeline, every possible lie. By the afternoon, I needed answers. Real ones. I scrolled through my contacts until I saw Alex's name, one of Ethan's closest friends, the kind who always talked too much when nervous. My fingers hesitated for a second before I hit call. "Hey, Alex, I saw the photos from last night," I said, keeping my voice light, friendly. He laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that tries to hide guilt. "Oh yeah," he said. "It was wild." That one word told me everything. I let him breathe for a moment, then slid the question in, sharp but casual. "By the way, who was that girl in the red dress? The one sitting on Ethan's lap?" The pause on the other end stretched like a wire ready to snap. He stuttered something about a dancer, and that's when I smiled, because I knew I had him cornered. "Alex," I said softly, "you don't sound sure." My voice stayed sweet, steady, the kind that disarms before it strikes. He sighed, a long, shaky sound that told me the truth was coming whether he liked it or not. "Look," he said, "I probably shouldn't—" I cut him off before he could finish. "Oh, I think you should. Ethan said it was nothing crazy, so help me understand what crazy looks like to you." The silence that followed was heavy, almost human. Finally, he cracked. "Lauren, it was a mess," he muttered. "Drinks, girls, the whole thing. Ethan wasn't exactly acting married. I'm sorry." His words hung in the air like smoke, impossible to ignore, impossible to unhear. I thanked him quietly, even though gratitude was the last thing I felt. My hand trembled slightly as I hung up, the sound of the disconnect echoing in my chest. So it was true. Every suspicion confirmed. I stared out the window, watching the sky darken over the neighborhood. The sunlight that once felt warm now seemed cruel. I thought about the years I'd given him, the trust, the loyalty, the blind belief. And in one night, one photo, one careless lie, he'd shattered it all. "You lied to my face this morning," I whispered to no one. "That's your first mistake. The second will cost you everything." After I hung up, I just sat there for a while, letting the quiet fill the room. The hum of the refrigerator, the faint ticking of the wall clock. Every sound suddenly felt louder, like the house itself was listening. I could almost hear my own thoughts rearranging, forming a plan in real time. I wasn't going to let rage take over. Rage fades. I wanted precision. I wanted him to feel the same kind of still panic I felt staring at those photos. I opened my laptop, stared at the glowing screen, and pulled up the pictures again. Each image told a story, one he thought I'd never read. His smile looked different now. Fake, practiced. Even the way he held her looked familiar, rehearsed. I analyzed every pixel like a detective, zooming in on details that once meant nothing. Now they were everything. My mind stored each image the way soldiers memorize enemy lines. By the time Ethan came home that night, I was calm. Too calm, maybe. I greeted him with a kiss on the cheek, the same way I always did. He didn't notice my steady breathing or the slight tension in my jaw. He just dropped his keys, smiled, and said, "You look tired." I smiled back, thinking, "You will be." My storm was no longer gathering. It was ready to strike. That evening, I printed the photos. Not just one or two, all of them. I wanted to see the full scale of his betrayal laid out on paper. The sound of the printer spitting out each sheet felt rhythmic, almost hypnotic. When it stopped, I arranged the photos neatly across the dining table, like evidence in a trial. My trial. His face smiled back at me from the glossy paper, still clueless, still smug. He had no idea what waited for him. By the time I heard the door unlock, I was ready. My heartbeat was steady, my posture calm, my hands folded on the table like I was hosting a meeting. He stepped in, smelling faintly of cologne and exhaustion. "Hey, babe," he said, smiling. "You look serious." I gestured toward the table. "Take a look. Maybe you'll remember your quiet night." The color drained from his face as his eyes fell on the photos. "Lauren, it's not what it looks like," he stammered. That line, that pathetic line, made something inside me snap, but my face didn't show it. "That's funny," I said evenly, "because it looks exactly like what it looks like." He tried to reach for one of the pictures, but I stopped him with a single glance. You drunk with another woman on your lap. Does that jog your memory? The silence that followed felt like punishment. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. Just stutters, fragments, excuses forming too late to matter. It was a bachelor party. Everyone was just joking around, he finally said, his voice high with desperation. I tilted my head slightly, studying him like a stranger. Joking around? I repeated. So she was laughing while sitting on you, and you were testing your vows? The look in his eyes told me he wanted to run, but guilt had already tied him to that chair. He rubbed the back of his neck, the way he always did when cornered. Lauren, please, he muttered. You know I'd never... I cut him off. You already did. My words sliced through the air sharper than I intended, but they landed exactly where they needed to. He tried to come closer, but I leaned back, my chair scraping softly against the floor. That small sound felt louder than any shout. It was final. I looked down at the photos again, the proof of who he really was. My mind flickered through the years we'd shared. Anniversaries, inside jokes, mornings like the one before. It all felt like a movie I'd watched too many times, one I could finally turn off. You didn't just embarrass me in private, I said quietly, meeting his eyes. You embarrassed me online, in front of everyone. His lips parted, but there was nothing left to say. He sank into the nearest chair, his head in his hands, mumbling something that sounded like regret but tasted like fear. I watched him, detached, almost studying him, the way his shoulders slumped, the way his voice cracked when he realized he'd been caught. It wasn't sadness that filled me. It was clarity. For the first time in a long time, I saw him exactly as he was, a man small enough to hide behind lies. He looked up at me with glassy eyes. What do you want me to say? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. I took a slow breath, feeling the anger settle like a calm sea after a storm. Nothing, I said. You've said enough already. The truth is, I didn't need his apology. I didn't even want it. I wanted him to sit there and feel what I'd felt. Powerless, humiliated, exposed. When I finally stood up, I could feel the balance shift in the room. He was no longer the one in control. I was. You're going to eat dinner alone tonight, I said, gathering the photos one by one, sliding them into a neat envelope. Consider this your reminder that actions always find their way home. His lips parted again, but I didn't wait for another excuse. My mind was already moving to the next step, something far more satisfying. The next morning, I woke up before him. The air felt lighter, but not because the tension was gone. It was because I had direction now. Revenge, when done right, isn't rage, it's choreography. I made breakfast, kissed him on the cheek, and told him we'd be fine. The relief in his eyes almost made me laugh. He believed me. That was his biggest mistake yet. He thought forgiveness was weakness, but I was just giving him rope. Over the next few days, I played my part perfectly. I smiled, touched his arm when we passed in the hallway, even cooked his favorite dinner. He relaxed, unaware that every move he made was being cataloged in my mind. I needed time, and the right audience. That's when I reached out to Tom, the groom from the party. I told him I wanted to plan something special for Ethan, something to make him smile again. Tom didn't question me. He sent over the full set of photos and even some videos. I thanked him sweetly and spent that evening watching them like a film critic studying scenes of betrayal. Each frame told me who laughed, who knew, who looked away. By the time I closed my laptop, the plan had taken shape. Poetic, precise, devastating. I wasn't just going to confront Ethan. I was going to redefine humiliation. I waited until Friday to set the stage. That morning, while Ethan showered, I sent a few messages, one to Tom, one to Alex, and a handful to the others who'd been at the party. My tone was cheerful, light, like the wife who still adored her husband. Dinner at our place, I wrote. Ethan deserves a proper celebration after all that wedding chaos. The replies came fast. We'll be there. Can't wait. He'll love it. Oh, he would, just not the way they thought. All afternoon, I prepared the house. Candles, wine glasses, a neatly ironed tablecloth, the illusion of warmth. I cooked his favorite meal, the one he always bragged about to his friends. Every detail was deliberate, every scent designed to disarm. By the time the doorbell rang, I was the picture of Grace, wearing his favorite blue dress and a calm smile. Ethan kissed my cheek, whispering, "You didn't have to do all this." I almost pitied him. Almost. As laughter filled the room, I moved like a hostess, pouring wine, laughing at jokes I didn't hear. The air buzzed with comfort, the perfect mask for what was about to happen. When everyone sat down for dinner, I stood beside Ethan, holding a small projector remote behind my back. "Before we eat," I said warmly, "I thought it'd be fun to look back on your bachelor night. Just some memories for everyone to laugh about." The first image flickered on the wall. The room fell silent as soon as the first photo appeared. A few laughs at first, nervous, uncertain, until the images began to shift. There was Ethan, drink in hand. Then Ethan again, this time with her, the woman in the red dress, sitting on his lap, her mouth close to his ear. I could hear the murmurs start. A few glances darted between faces, between him and me. And then, that moment of realization, the collective inhale before the truth lands. Ethan's face went pale. He turned to me, whispering harshly, "Lauren, turn it off." I didn't move. "Why?" I asked softly. "This was your big night, wasn't it? I thought we could all celebrate." His voice cracked as he said my name again, but I didn't hear it. Not really. The room belonged to me now. The slideshow rolled on, each photo louder than any accusation I could ever make. I didn't need to raise my voice. The evidence screamed for me. When the final image faded, I faced him fully. His friends avoided his eyes, the room thick with shame. "You told me it was nothing crazy," I said quietly. "You were right. It wasn't crazy. It was pathetic." I left the remote on the table, my hands steady, my heart strangely light. As I walked out of that room, the sound of his humiliation followed me like applause. But the show wasn't over yet, not by a long shot. The next morning, the house was too quiet. Even the birds outside seemed hesitant to sing. I made coffee like I always did, steady hands, deliberate movements. The same routine, just missing the illusion. Ethan came into the kitchen, eyes swollen, voice soft. "Lauren, please, I messed up," he said. His words trembled, but they didn't reach me. I'd already heard enough confessions in silence to last a lifetime. He stood there, unshaven, still in yesterday's shirt, looking like a man undone by his own choices. "It was stupid," he went on. "It didn't mean anything." That phrase, "didn't mean anything," made something tighten in my chest. I turned to face him, my voice calm, controlled. "You didn't mean anything by it," I said, "but you meant everything when you lied. Over and over." The truth rolled off my tongue like a verdict. He stepped closer, desperation flickering behind his eyes. "We can fix this," he pleaded. "I'll do whatever you want." I nodded slowly, letting him believe, for one last moment, that redemption was still possible. "Good," I said, my tone soft but final. "Start by packing. The movers come at noon." The shock on his face was almost pitiful. Almost. But pity was something I'd buried with the woman I used to be. He blinked, like he hadn't processed what I'd said. "You're serious?" he whispered. I met his eyes, steady, unshaken. "Completely." I watched him look around the kitchen as if searching for a trace of the life he'd just lost. Every chair, every mug, every framed photo had turned into evidence of his undoing. I'd built this home with love. He'd turned it into a crime scene. And now I was reclaiming it piece by piece. He tried again, his voice cracking. "Lauren, don't do this. We can talk, please." That word, please, sounded different now, stripped of power. I leaned against the counter, folding my arms. I already talked, I said. You just didn't listen. His shoulders sagged, the weight of consequence finally landing. The silence that followed was almost beautiful, the kind that feels like peace disguised as pain. He lingered there for a long moment, maybe hoping for a miracle, maybe realizing there wouldn't be one. When he finally started packing, I didn't help. I watched from the doorway, detached but aware of every sound, the drawers opening, the zippers, the quiet sniffles. Each noise was a small victory, a mark of closure. For years, I'd lived under the illusion of partnership. Now I was finally learning what freedom sounded like. When the movers arrived, Ethan was still fumbling with his things, rushing, apologizing, begging. I stood by the window, watching them carry out the pieces of our life one box at a time. It felt strange at first, like I was watching a movie of someone else's ending. But as the house emptied, so did the ache inside me. Each thud of a box on the truck sounded less like loss and more like release. He stopped at the door, suitcase in hand, eyes glassy. I never meant to hurt you, he said, his voice breaking. I smiled faintly, not cruelly, just truthfully. You were caught in the background, Ethan, I said, and now you'll stay there. He opened his mouth as if to answer, but there was nothing left to say. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded a lot like finality. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was sacred. I walked through each room, touching the walls, the furniture, the spaces that had once held laughter and lies in equal measure. The house looked bare, but it felt honest for the first time. I wasn't angry anymore. I was awake. And somewhere deep down, I already knew. This wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of me. Months later, the city feels different. Brighter, somehow. Maybe it's me. I spend my mornings at a little cafe on the corner, the kind that smells like roasted beans and second chances. My laptop hums softly as I edit photos for clients, a career I rebuilt on my own terms. The light through the window paints everything gold, and for the first time in years, I don't rush to check my phone. Peace has its own rhythm, and I've learned to dance to it. Maya, my closest friend, slides into the seat across from me, grinning. So, she says, do you ever look at those old pictures? I sip my cappuccino before answering, letting the steam warm my lips. Sometimes, I admit, just to remind myself how clear things become when you zoom in. She laughs, but I can tell she understands. There's a quiet power in clarity, a strength I never knew I had until everything fell apart. My phone buzzes, lighting up the table with a travel confirmation. One ticket. Italy, my name, my freedom. Maya raises an eyebrow and I smile, feeling the weight of the past finally dissolve. He taught me one thing, I say softly, almost to myself. If someone wants to play behind your back, make sure the world sees the picture clearly. This time, though, I'm the one behind the lens, and I'm framing a brand new life.